Hey man, you're looking well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. We live in interesting times, and I can only try my best.
Mm, yeah, I feel like this is the general sentiment that everybody is sort of adopting at the moment.
Yeah, it really is one day at a time, man. It's kind of frustrating because my natural tendency is to want to plan things out and make a
Mm.
bit of a schedule, but yeah, man, who knows what's going to happen? We could be in Mad Max world this time next year. Um,
With Bitcoin taking over and
yeah, oh, I mean, Bitcoin's the hope, right? But the pain that happens before that, right? There's always the dark ages. Quickly approaching. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's a tough one. There's so much going on. People don't know up from down, left from right.
it's a hard
Um,
one because I feel like I've been thinking a lot about this recently, but I've found that it's really difficult to be positive at the moment, and I'm really trying hard. I'm really being very mindful of it. As soon as I slip into sort of negative speech, then I'm sort of trying to quickly course correct. But I find that it's just getting harder and harder and harder recently.
I think I think one of the challenges is that we still have kind of the way we were doing things in our mind, and we're trying to reconcile the way things were with the way things are. And I think that's one of the challenges because you could just sort of let go of the way things were, but that entails quite a lot of well, you're kind of giving up on it, moving on from it. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's I always come back to Marcus Aurelius, of course, and I think, well, what would he do? And it's sort of resort, come into himself and sort of come back to this sort of special place, right, that he has inside himself. And I think that's definitely wise advice. And I do spend a bit of time reading through the meditations. I have it on the Kindle actually, so I read that sometimes, and it's very helpful. But it's hard, when times are good and you're just going through a daily struggle. That sort of can be quite helpful. But it seems like everything, the lens through which we view reality, is like broken or something.
Yeah, yeah, we're like slipping into the matrix. But I think Marcus Aurelius lived through a pandemic, didn't he? I think there was one
Well, it wasn't
back
wasn't
when he
he
was.
in sort of towards the end of the empire, like sort of the bad days? Or
Yeah, but I think he lived through quite a lot of strife, and I think that's what made him so strong.
it was an amazing writer.
But he was able to sort of pivot a lot. He had a lot of these problems in his life, and he was able to pivot into sort of getting past his problems and his issues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's quite an interesting take on leadership as well. I think that's something that's really lacking in the world today is really genuine leadership. Um, I find it interesting in New Zealand. Well, yeah, I don't know what it's like internationally, but we're Jacinda Ardern, but really a failed leader in my opinion. But there's quite a lot of accolades still going her way, um, even though she's done such a terrible job, I think, of handling this whole thing. Um, but it's sort of like words, but quite empty words. And true leadership, moral leadership, ethical leadership is extremely lacking at the moment, which I find a bit challenging. Sort of nothing really matters anymore. But what do we do, man?
We create, we keep going, we be strong,
We keep going. We
sharpen the
sharpen
tools.
the tools. Yeah, not the blades. And we demonstrate compassion for a fellow man, and their endeavor. I think I realized, like, I don't know if you've noticed the thing of people wearing masks while they're by themselves in the car or something.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, isn't it? This is really a bizarre side of society.
And I believe, I mean, I have a lot of compassion, and I think this is something that's also quite lacking at the moment. But like, I believe it's ultimately, people have been shocked beyond belief through fear and propaganda about this virus. And you and I have, we've luckily had the chance to travel. We've gone through many different kinds of life experiences, which mean maybe our kind of ability to deal with that or to cope with that is maybe different to other people, and everyone has their own thing, right? But for these people, maybe they're so, so much anxiety that they feel that that's what they need to do to be safe, which isn't, obviously it's not helping them, but, it's comforting them. And so for me, that's symptomatic of a culture of fear and anxiety that's permeating culture right now, society. And it's our role as artists and creators to provide something that can help people through that, to respond to that, to integrate that into our practice,
Yeah. It's really affected a lot of people in very, very strong ways. There are two types of people who just sort of get on with it and wear the mask when they need to, get their vaccine if they feel like they want to do that, socially distance if they want. And then there are people who've just completely withdrawn into their shell and they're just hiding away from the world, maybe through legitimate concerns for their health, but some people are genuinely terrified.
Yeah, I believe that is the case. And so, again, that's why I think compassion is really important, because I think, the lower level of that is say, well, to just kind of go along with it, or, everyone can do their own thing. And because I find that it's quite impersonal, when people are masking up, it's sort of, I'm not dealing with a person anymore. It's just sort of a couple of eyeballs. And I had an interesting thing today. I was on the bus and there's this little kid, and everyone on the bus is masked up, right? And the little kid isn't, because they don't, they're not required to. And I could just see it looking around, trying to find something to latch onto.
Like a face.
A face, because children have this pattern-seeking function, right? And they try to find a human face and to deal to interface with, and because their parents are sitting there kind of fondling it, and I'm like, man, this has got to be the most bizarre thing, and and I believe we are going to have a generation of children who are traumatized by this. And there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done, the kind of people unable to recognize human faces. I believe there is actually a medical condition that, causes that. Because if at a very specific age, if you don't get the opportunity to develop that skill, then you never get it,
Yeah.
And people don't people don't think about that stuff. Or they don't think it's important, but it is, developmentally. Children need to see a face. They need to see the faces not of just people around them in the house, but just outside, on the street and whatnot. Because it's very scary, you see someone masked up that looks like they're a, it's almost a criminal sort of very, not very friendly vibes at all,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about you, but I can't tell if somebody's smiling behind the mask, or I tried to see with the eyes, but it's so difficult.
Well, if we were to develop, let's reflect on this, but like this current zeitgeist that we're experiencing, like if we were to go 50 years into the future and sort of look back, imagine the poetry and the novels and the films that are going to be built around this, the mask, this concept of hiding away from that which is unseeable, unknowable, out of fear and compliance, this sort of zeitgeist that has descended over society, out of somewhat legitimate concerns in some situations, but generally speaking, most people are going to be okay, and I think that's the other thing that's quite interesting. And have you ever really been super sick, or have you had influenza before?
No, I haven't actually. No, I've been.
I've had legitimate. Oh, I mean, it's not a bad thing, man. I've had influenza before, and it knocks you out, man. Like you get the cold, right? And then then you get influenza, and it's like you're in bed for a week, and chicken soup and whatnot, and I've been sick. I had some miscellaneous virus when I was actually in Thailand, and I had to literally drag myself to the hospital. But that's all sort of part and parcel of running around knee deep in the canals of Bangkok, But
yeah.
It's all part of it, But we've sort of sanitized that out of life,
Yeah, let's not get sick. Yeah, let's avoid sickness.
And I think there's an interesting engagement with sickness, which maybe is related to modern society in terms of like the kind of this eternal youth,
Mm.
the apple of youth. Like, we're not faced necessarily with the kind of true nature of death and decay.
Going back to what you said about the long term effects of COVID and babies recognizing faces and stuff, I think we are definitely heading for whole generations of people who have mental health issues that have been amplified by this pandemic. I think mental health issues are a problem always and always will be and always have been, but this pandemic specifically has really amplified a lot of people's problems. And I'm seeing people who were very happy go lucky before the pandemic just turning into sort of people who need to hide away a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough one, man, because it is the pandemic, but a lot of it is, I believe, this coercion and kind of government response, which is causing this. Because at the end of the day, um, viruses come and go, right? But there's kind of societal changes, cultural shifts, which are happening. This chilling effect, and I was lamenting actually today how I truly believe that my photography of New Zealand that I've been working on recently is the visual, but in terms of the actual change that's happened in society, I really believe that the old New Zealand is gone with this current situation we're in. Like, the fear, New Zealand is a very congenial and easygoing and kind of they'll help you out sort of a thing. That's sort of a vibe, but that has all sort of gone away with this whole situation, and people just there's just been the social chilling effect. Certain people sort of still go out and about, but it's definitely not the way it used to be, which is a shame, because it's a small place, and there's no reason to be, sort of distant from your fellow man.
Yeah, there's no more love thy neighbor anymore. It's more like be afraid of thy neighbor.
Yeah, and that was literally the campaign that what they were pushing through. Sort of don't go and talk to your neighbor, or don't da da da. And I find that very interesting because it's like this. I guess just from a media perspective, like this use of the media to tell that story and to push that, and then the way that people have just sort of picked up on it. It's like. I always thought there's no way it could be true, but the Frankfurt School, which we have spoken about before, I think, but they had this idea of the I think they call it like the injection theory of media or something, where it's like the audiences just kind of take it as it is,
Right.
and then there was like these kind of hegemonic negotiations of media where it's like you take certain bits and whatnot, but just the kind of the old school approach of like, people just take it wholesale. That's how media works. It seems like that's actually the case, like when fear is involved, they just listen to whatever's is said,
Yeah, but the trouble is whatever channel you listen to will give you a different spin on it. The media at the moment is you can watch a news show that will tell you exactly what you want to hear. It doesn't matter what you want to hear. If you want to hear migrants are bad, then you will find a source to tell you that. And that's the problem. This sort of like fragmentation of the truth is tearing people apart. It's tearing our culture apart.
It's interesting. I think a simplification of it would be, and they talk about this in the Bitcoin space, but like, was it FUD? Fear, uncertainty, doubt. And I think at the end of the day, it has a very paralyzing effect on people because you don't know. It's not a clear yes or no. It's just like people don't know what to do. All right. And they're just sort of, they're stuck. And, there's no way to negotiate out of it. There's no solution. There's no clear answer because it's so meta, and some people can think at that scale, but for most people it's like, oh, I can't do the things that I want to do. And that's frustrating, right? But to understand that the entire systemic structure of everything has been, overtaken and changed to purposely not enable you to do these things. It's quite hard to conceptualize that, I think. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's definitely been on my mind lately as New Zealand sort of, it was kind of okay for a while, but definitely I feel like this isn't the country that I grew up in anymore.
Yeah, you're sort of questioning your relationship to your home country.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly am. I'd be ready to leave, if I could. It's what the government have done is to divide this country, and it's happening in a lot of places, man. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but
Well, we've got another variant heading over here now.
was it Omicron?
Omicron, yeah. Omega. Why didn't they call it Omega? How strange.
Man, we need some Power Ranger names in here or something.
Yeah, we do. I feel like it makes it a bit more farcical, though. Like, people don't take it seriously if it's called Decepticon or Omicron.
Yeah, man. No, I love it, man. Like, I think at the high level, though, it is the playfulness, and I think it's quite cool to kind of try it on for size as well. Like, I don't know, man. Like this sanity thing, like, I find it really interesting because I'd consider I've always been a very clean person, and I know that's a random thing to say, but like, I'm just normal, right? But what if you, what does it mean to just go and play around in the mud outside? Like what does cleanliness mean? Because the masks are a visual thing of that, and the sanitizer they have in the shops and all of that stuff. But is that the way it's meant to be? Like, is that what we are? Biological organisms at the end of the day.
Try to scrub all the bacteria from our bodies and we'll just become this.
Yeah, it sounds like PTSD. It sounds like fucking obsessive compulsive disorder to be cleaning every aspect of everything, But that's literally the media thing of deep cleaning of shops and things after the after something's happened. And I don't know, it's almost that it's not accepting the reality of it. It's like life is dirty and messy, and sometimes people get sick, and shit happens. This kind of there's this like good space of like like in the Victorian era or whatnot, and people get like there's a classic writer's disease of tuberculosis, right? George Orwell. In the old days, everyone died of tuberculosis. But it was seen as elegant, in a very poetic sense. To die of tuberculosis was to die a poet's death.
Is that it, really?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. It might have even been. A couple of Japanese authors had TB. I think Miyazawa Kenji and a few others, but definitely in the UK, that kind of Victorian era, it was seen as this kind of quite elegant way, because the nickname for it was consumption, right? So it slowly consumes your body,
right?
And so George Orwell, he had it, and it was quite a shame because that would have been when antibiotics were starting to come out, I think. So maybe he could have actually survived it, but and was it 1950? I think when he died, that was his sort of his thing, dying on the island of Jura in Scotland, like that last moment. But we don't really have that anymore, because everyone's supposed to live forever as Instagrammers.
Well, we're sort of we're in this changing period, aren't we, where people will start to live for an awfully long time. Your Elon Musks and your Jeff Bezos, they're going to start to defy death somehow.
Well, there's this. Was it Peter Thiel?
Yes,
the brazilianaire. He isn't he into like the blood transfusions and all of that from young people?
Yes. I think that's
that whole thing. I don't know, man. Like whatever. But like that. For me, that I find that very interesting because it's kind of like the antithesis of life, like to kind of extend this thing and this like formaldehyde and just kind of keep it going and going. And I look at Zuckerberg or whatnot, and I'm like, man, this is a formaldehyde test subject, like in this jar, just preserved. He's never had anything real happen to him?
No, there's something really odd about Zuckerberg. I know we've talked about him before on podcasts, but
He's not real.
no, so there's something really not real about him. What a weird character.
But, I have some, I mean, this is me being romantic, but like, I think, you know what? At the end of the day, like some of my favorite authors, some of the work that's inspired me most deeply has happened from people who died, they're no longer with us, a lot of old stuff, of course, these people from the 19th century, they're gone, but also a lot of people out of that group, a lot of those people died at a very young age, and that kind of relationship, that finality of your last piece, like, for example, I'm a big fan of Bruckner, Anton Bruckner, the composer, and I think it's his ninth symphony it's like unfinished. And there's a couple of them, like I think Beethoven has like an unfinished symphony and whatnot. Like, this kind of there will never be another one, or some unfinished manuscript or some unfinished thing, and that's like that leaves it as it is, and it's this sort of quite beautiful reflection on the nature of life, like they did it, and what's left is left.
I feel like Stanley Kubrick had some stuff still going when he passed away, but I feel like I remember I think earlier this year we had a call once, and I think you said to me, it was a very offhand comment, but it stuck with me, and you said something like, you should only look up to dead people. I think you should only be inspired by dead people. And it really was just an offhand comment. You weren't sort of like instilling some knowledge bomb on me, but it is true. Like, you really should look at the past and, sort of get inspired by, I think you were telling me about Marcus Aurelius at the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you can look at dead people and their work is, you can see it for all it is, and take inspiration from that. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I think there's some big questions, some big moral, philosophical questions around this whole situation, which are yet to be fully addressed. But what I think may happen is that, just as with the Industrial Revolution, where there was this kind of great romantic movement that went alongside this technological development to kind of compensate for it, I think with everything going on today, there will be a art movement that responds to the nihilism and the kind of emptiness of everything, and I mean, even realistically, even looking at something like what we've talked about with the NFT space, where it's like, is there room for a genuine story, authentic stories anymore? I don't know, is it crypto monkeys or is it nothing, There's this kind of search for meaning, man's search for meaning, as Viktor Frankl would say. But what is important to us as humans, as living creatures with souls, with a consciousness? Is it to simply, endeavor to continue just one day at a time in constant fear of the unknowable and the unseeable? Or is it to live our lives and accept that we may die, or we will die, that we may get sick in the process, but, there is a finality that awaits us, and that we must use every day to be human,
And to find joy, and to find little joy. Like, I really believe in finding little bits of joy throughout your day, even down to silly things like using nice hand soap. It sounds silly, but it just brings a little bit of joy into your day.
Oh man, I've been getting into moisturizer recently.
Great.
I
for
didn't
your body
know.
or your face, or
body? No, just my face. Well, I mean, wherever it's needed. But I just didn't realize. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I didn't realize I had dry skin. I started moisturizing.
And that's exactly it, right? You buy a nice moisturizer and you sort of bring this little bit of joy into your day. And then these stack up, these add up. You buy some nice tea that you really enjoy. You go for a walk after dinner. I started going for a walk after dinner, right? So I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast. And I think it was with it was with a doctor or a food scientist or something recently, and he said one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life is to start going for a small, short walk after dinner, right? Like, you finish, maybe wait 10, 15 minutes, and then you go for a walk for 10, 15 minutes or 20, 30 minutes,
Mm.
whatever, however long you feel like. And man, I feel so much better. Like just burning that energy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, I had this friend from Georgia, from as in the European country, but I guess yeah, it's not really Europe, but kind of in the middles of Europe and Asia. But anyway, we used to hang out sometimes, and his father was quite interesting, like because Georgia was a Soviet republic, and his father was quite a bit older, and I remember we'd sort of be playing around as children do. And then his father would go for these sort of long walks in the evening, sort of the twilight evening. And he'd have his arms behind his back, sort of like, Morpheus from The Matrix. He kind of crosses his arm behind his back and sort of just pondering thought as he would walk around the block. And I remember thinking, man, this guy would have spent his whole life, the father growing up in this Soviet republic. And just sort of the contemplation that would necessitate, because you wouldn't really be able to talk about stuff super openly, right?
Yeah.
And so just going for a long walk, and I remember just there's this image of him in the evenings, just leaving the house while we were sort of messing around with the computer or something, and walking down the driveway, and I think, man, that's a rare thing, the contemplation. When do we do that anymore?
Yeah, we don't. And that's the problem. And that's why there's a massive industry based around apps that get you to log your daily journal or your daily thoughts or your feeling. So, there's a lot of apps on the App Store now, which will send you a notification throughout the day. And it will have like a question that says, how are you feeling right now? And then there'll be 5 smiley faces from unhappy to super happy, and then you sort of log your feeling, and then you go back to your Netflix. Like it's like this tiny instantaneous, how are you feeling? Oh, actually I feel pretty shit. Oh well, I'll go back to Netflix. Or okay, I always hate on Netflix in this podcast. I really should stop doing that. But going back to work or going back to whatever you were doing, and you're sort of like moving on from this self-reflection point with no self-reflection being done. It's like this instantaneous sort of like fast food, fast meditation, fast reflection thing.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, man. Like, I think people don't get the opportunity to really think about that stuff and to really consider it, And I remember I actually had I was going through a bit of a tough time, and one thing that I really enjoy doing is actually going into bookstores, like secondhand bookstores, not the big ones, but just like small local ones. And that's actually where I picked up Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
Great book.
Yeah, and I was just looking through it and just sort of reading it. It was a lovely little place. It's called Pegasus Bookstore in Cuba Street in Wellington, and just sitting there in one of the little couches they've got there and reading it, and just sort of seeing how that, because it's a true story, and he's in this concentration camp, and the only thing that gave him hope to get him up every morning to go on these work missions, even though they were starving and everything, was just the vision of his wife, who had actually in reality already been killed, but that vision of her was what kept him going, that kind of the dream of that. And that I really identify with that, how powerful an image like that can be. I remember when I was 15 years old, I spent a Christmas, or about 2 weeks, in the mountains with my dad and my grandfather, and just hunting and fishing, and totally isolated. We helicoptered into the place. It was called Comet Hut, actually. And I remember I eventually got tasked with going up the top of the mountain every day to try and shoot a deer. And we went up together a few times, but then After a little while, I just started going up, by myself. So I'd wake up at like 5 or whatever. Time doesn't matter out there. We didn't have any clocks, but it was, dark. And I'd take the rifle and I would go out there. And I just remember just this almost these kind of hallucinations as I was climbing the mountain, because you're so tired, it's such hard work. And I'd start to just try and latch onto imagery. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, my first love, in fact, that image of her kept coming back to me, like this dream of Beatrice in the dark forest, that Dante's walking through. And it was very much like that, this kind of angelic, thing. And then, you'd eventually get to the top of the mountain and sort of break out of the dark forest. But that image was like, for me, and I don't intend to compare myself to Viktor Frankl in any sense, but like I can see where he was coming from, because you can energize from things like that, even if they are just an imagination.
Yeah, I imagine that's because she had such a profound effect on you, being your first love.
Well, your first love always does, you know. I look back on it very, very fondly, and I do wish. I have actually a letter drafted there to her. She knows who she is, but I always thought, I'd love to, because I don't know where she is or anything like that. But being able to send that to her and say, look, I'm sorry for everything, because when you're young, your children still, in a way, you don't know what you know as an adult, right? And so it's this kind of process of discovery.
But also for me, I had many first loves, and every time I thought, oh yeah, this is love, and then of course you find out that it wasn't love at all, and then one day you do find it, and then you're like, right, okay, so this is the first love. It's difficult when you're young. You're sort of like very excitable, falling in love with anything that moves, maybe.
I think, we're designed that way in a way, but it's also like, at the end of the day, and this might sound a bit crass, but it's like you can fall in love with anyone, and anyone can fall in love with you. And it's like humans are designed to be, we're compatible creatures, like you'll find a way to make it work, and I think of like my grandparents or something, and it's like, you could be picky, or you could just stick with the person who you marry, like it's like, I don't know, there's almost this kind of too much choice, right? Like there's always something else. But at the end of the day, if you're on a desert island, you make it work, if you have this kind of approach to life, and this, you have this kind of discourse and this kind of compassion. And it's maybe not as glamorous as kind of love, but I do believe anyone sort of given enough time and, spending time together can can understand someone else's position. But we don't have that anymore because it's so kind of disconnected, and the kind of that altruistic kind of giving aspect that is, it's taught in a lot of religions and things, but it's not really practiced in the modern world. It's very selfish times we live in. I actually remember, I've written about this a little bit, but I was on a separate occasion, I was actually hunting with my father in the mountains, and just me and him this time. And we're just camping. It's really cold, disgusting weather up in the mountains, just rainy and wet. And I think it was like the last day, and we didn't really have anything left to eat, just water. I think we might have had like a small packet of like instant noodles and a sachet of coffee. And I remember him saying, "Oh, you take the noodles, and you can have some of my coffee. I don't need any noodles," And that small act, which I still think about quite a lot, for me is the true. That's the true. That's true nature of like of a father figure, of to kind of not need it, to not take for yourself, but to give to others. And in that situation, even though I was ostensibly the younger, stronger, the young gun, he still said, "Look, you take it. I'm going to be okay." And I often think, maybe you start thinking, "Oh fuck, this guy's pissing me off," or "I'm not really happy with this," or whatnot. If I was in that situation with anyone else, would I be the one saying, hey, no, you go ahead, you take it, if we're on the mountain together? And if you really think about that, you can't really hate anybody, because you're not going anywhere. You're stuck there. You've got to work together,
There's no room for hate. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no room for hate. And hate only gets sort of, I think, proffered up by this kind of tribal instinct, which is a sort of a level above, not a high level, but just a different level to, say, that interpersonal level. But if you really truly get to know somebody, you can't hate them. You can only love them, I think.
Yeah. I feel like you would have given your noodles to someone you love.
Yeah.
And I like this as a metaphor. Like, we should use this as a metaphor. I would give you my noodles. Like,
Oh, I often think about that. Like, I come back to that, honestly, like that moment, because that was quite a pivotal moment for me, because on that trip, I shot a deer for the first time, and it was quite a emotional experience, because I saw that deer and I shot it, and my father was there, sort of the expert hunter, the mountain man, and I sort of managed to prove myself in that moment. But that was quite a formative moment for me. But I feel like a lot of young people don't have that experience or that opportunity. And there was a lot of organisations in the past which provided for that, things like scouts and Girl Guides and things like that. But that's not really, it's not really a thing anymore. Everyone's just playing Fortnite on their computer or PlayStation.
Yeah, I don't even know if like scouts and Girl Guides are still like around. Are they still big things at all?
Well, I don't know, man. It's hard, because there's still kind of outdoor groups and stuff, but I think there's a true difference. There's kind of fun, kind of go camping and having a good time, but definitely all of the outdoor experiences I ever had, I would characterize them as extremely difficult. They weren't easy. They weren't fun. And it's just the way it was, but like they were very tough. And that's kind of made me into who I am, so I enjoy hard things, difficult stuff. Enjoy is not really the word, right? It's sort of like, it's just like
it's a tricky word. I put up with difficult things.
Well, no, but I seek it out, because it's good stuff, It's like, why do you go to the gym? Why do you do anything?
Sure.
Because we could all just sit as a blob on the ground,
Well, Zen Buddhist monks would like us to do that, wouldn't they? Just sit on the ground.
I don't know, man.
It's a different thing.
Like,
I'm just joking. I know it's a different thing.
No, it's joking's all good. Like, somebody said, it's like once you achieve enlightenment. Oh no! Like before enlightenment, chop wood and sweep sand or whatever, and then after enlightenment, chop wood and sweep sand. Like you just keep doing it anyway. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, no, I would give my noodles to other people. I try to give, but it's hard, because we live in this transactional fucking society, like people don't operate on that level, and we're not in that world anymore because people have backup options and whatnot. But we're not in this kind of survivalist thing yet, anyway. Where people need to rely on each other to that degree, and maybe that's the failing of modern society, is that we've become so disconnected that we can just meta each other with the Oculus headset, Yeah, but it's a tough one, man. Like I think, again, I often think, I think back to that mountain trip and some of the difficult times, that I've had in similar situations, and that there is this place that you can return to. And again, Viktor Frankl, writes about this, but we live in a world, a planet-sized prison at the moment. I'd love to come over and see you. I'd love to come and, go back to Japan, do it. There's so much that I'd like to do right now, but the reality is that I am stuck on these islands, right? There's no way really for me to get out of here. And even if I do, I can't come back. It's a little bit different in Europe. Maybe you guys can travel a bit more freely, but, things are locked down at a planetary scale. People are just sort of working from home and doing all of this stuff, but there is, I think, a need for that kind of imagination, and stuff that's not necessarily just work, right? Because, oh man, what is work,
It's just a way to get money.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of been co-opted in a way. I'm feeling like there's something in the air though. Like there's a lot of people who don't want to work anymore, and work. Like there's a lot of empty places. Sort of the minimum wage jobs and things. People they can't find people to fill those holes.
Are you having that in New Zealand as well? Same thing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Cafes can't find staff.
Yeah, it's the same here.
And in China, they got a word for it. They call it jiao jiao liao, like 996, because everyone works like 9 hours, 9 to 9, 6 days a week. And then it's like Japan, right? But then the flip side of that is this laying down kind of thing. They call it like lying flat. And it's like the response to that. And so people are just like staying at home, not working, not going to university, just kind of taking it easy. And that's that kind of response that I was talking about. So you had, say, the Industrial Revolution, and the response to that is the Romantic Art movement. So the response to like digital capitalism is something like lying flat or hikikomori. Maybe hikikomori is slightly different roots, but
I think hikikomori is a bit more
social.
Yeah, destroying yourself a bit more. Like for anybody that doesn't know, it's sort of this Japanese phenomenon of young people just staying in their rooms all day, right? Playing video games, watching YouTube, and never leaving. But it's a problem. It's not a social. It's not a choice. They don't choose to just do it. It's sort of like they can't leave. It's almost like agoraphobia.
It sounds like my life right now, man.
Yeah.
I mean, so literally, like,
yeah, you can't get out.
I can't get out. But yeah, I don't know, man. We live in interesting times, and all I think is that there is a need, a deep need right now for philosophy and morals. I think we've been ruled by science, or kind of science being paraded around. The numbers are changing every day. Truth has become this malleable fucking thing. What does truth even mean anymore?
Yeah.
What does beauty even mean? People are just in this sort of interstitial space, and guidance is important. I think people need a bit of guidance, and that's kind of I guess something I try to provide. I need it myself as well. It's sort of like I don't know.
Do you find you need guidance from an outside person as well, like an outside source?
Yeah, it's hard, man, because it's like, I'm after practical solutions, and then I get given, I don't know, quite deep spiritual, philosophical advice. It's just like, oh man, that's cool, but it's not really what I'm after. But it is in a way, like, because you can't really logic your way out of it, even as much as I'd like to. You just kind of got to go with it and accept that it is what it is. But then it's also like, well, actually, I don't really want to do that. I just kind of want to sort it all out. But then you get kind of wound up. You start trying to fight it. I don't know. It's a personal battle, I think, for everyone at the moment. And some people, they do that by masking up by themselves in their car because they're just scared of it. And for other people, they wound themselves up and they get angry or whatever. But everyone's fighting a personal battle right now, and I don't think we need to. It's been placed upon us.
Yeah, and it's been placed on top of personal battles that people were already dealing with in their lives. There was already shit going on in people's lives, and then bam, here comes a huge worldwide pandemic on top. Yeah,
and I still think the repercussions of this will all come out eventually, but just the legitimacy of a lot of it, and the kind of coercion aspect of it, I find particularly interesting. And I think there is. It's hard to say where things are going to go, but just the kind of the digital aspect of it, people's technology kind of controlling them, and we've got these fucking vaccine passports now coming to New Zealand where it's like, okay, I'm going to be checking in, scanning into every store and every restaurant.
Yeah.
And,
but it's bad because even talking about these topics in the way that we are, now is sort of
Oh man,
seen as anti-vax, right?
we're the enemy, man. We are
Like
we
everyone
are
just immediately jumps on the, oh, you're anti-vaxxers. But it's not really, it's not like that. It's anti-control. Like it's
I'm just having a
anti-1984.
conversation, man. Fuck, man, I've had all my shots, man. I remember when we were in school, we had bloody measles, mumps, rubella, all of the, it's all good, man. That's the greatest thing, greatest medical achievement of all time. But what we're talking about here is control.
Yeah.
The people are, governments are preying upon people's fear and the status quo to turn them into these obedient, compliant fucking slaves. And they are literally the serfs of the old days, and the new ruling class is just sort of going about, as they always do. But yeah, the media narrative, being able to just discuss this stuff is like, oh man, that's a bit out there. Why is that? I don't know.
Because it challenges other people, and they feel like, well, I wear my mask, I get vaccine, I've got the vaccine passport, and then if there's other people talking about, well, hold on a second, that seems a bit, like control, like, and then it's sort of like a personal attack to these people,
exactly,
right, who followed the rules and wear their mask. And
well, they're looking for they talk about this kind of free floating anxiety, right? And it's like people are looking for an outlet, and of course, not everyone's going to be able to shoot their I shouldn't say shoot, but push that energy back towards the government. But like the energy needs to be pushed somewhere, and that's like the easiest person to do that is the person who's challenging your compliance.
Exactly.
It's like, well, why did I put up for 2 years of lockdowns?
Yeah, basically, it makes them question that question. Exactly.
Which I mean, it's happened before, though. I mean, it's happened in all of these totalitarian states, and I believe we are potentially in a pre-totalitarian phase at the moment, where it could go either way. In your case, in particular, one only needs to read 1984, Ingsoc, and the double speak, and wasn't Newspeak. It's all there. It literally, George Orwell laid it all out for us. And interestingly enough, in 1984, there's the Brotherhood, who are the so-called enemy, but in fact, they are actually formulated by the party. There's no, because there's no real resistance. It is just the party, but they do still need like a little bit of a resistance to just, keep it legitimate. To
keep everyone fearful and scared.
Yeah. So instead of East Asia and whatnot, it's was it Omicron or Decepticon?
Decepticon.
Delta.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Sorry, we're just having a conversation. We're not making any outrageous claims, I don't think.
No. I hope people don't see that.
Well, I mean, they can, and look, I'm happy to take an email, and this is what a conversation late at night would be like, if we were having a beer and we were just chatting. Well, but it would all be hushed voices because, it's not being broadcast to millions of people. But in this case, it's like, well, just this is the stuff that's on our mind, and I'm happy to have a discussion about it. Happy to answer questions.
Well, it's very current. It's very in the news. It's very affecting our day-to-day lives. So we should be having a chat about it, We
should be. And I think just ignoring it and going about, in business as usual and working is literally that's, you are a proletarian when you do that. Don't worry about the other stuff. Don't worry about the man behind the curtain. I find it all very exciting. I think, because what's on the other side of all of this, man? Is it the collapse of, of central banks and governments being able to fund all this kind of bullshit? Is it a Bitcoin standard? Is it a world where, we look at this and go, okay, we can't ever let this happen again. And we have to have a constitution, a global fucking constitution that just says this stuff can't be done. Just to get to, once and for all, the war to end all wars in a way. Because, I think if we get through it, that is, because I think historians will look back on this and be like, yeah, something really wrong happened. Yeah.
I don't trust that something will happen like that where we come together and decide, well, we can't let this happen again. I'm not that hopeful, unfortunately. I'll try to be.
I mean, that's where leadership comes in, and I often think, shit, do I have that in me, to be a leader in that space? What is the constitution of the free people of the world look like? What does the manifesto of those who choose to be the way they are, to be, the humanist manifesto? What does that read? Because at the moment, you and I are nothing but potential COVID spreaders. You and I are nothing but fucking potential cases, and as is everyone. Everyone's just a statistic at this point. And if you die, you die with COVID.
Yeah, and you're just a number. You're one.
You're
of
just
the
a number,
15,000.
and that's every human on Earth has been reduced to a number in that sense. But it's like, no, every human possesses the light of consciousness and the ability to love and create and imagine a world within themselves, which is the teachings of a lot of religions, a lot of philosophers, a lot of moralists, and that is no longer the case. We've just been reduced to cattle with fucking air tags. Number 495 died with COVID. That's jeez. But that, and that's, yeah. So sorry, man, I'm being a bit depressing here, but like, I think a certain amount of humor is needed because, you got to make it funny. But yeah, I mean, I fucking kept, air tags.
You got to get through it with humor, man.
Yeah, but yeah. It's just change the topic quickly though before we move on. But you've been working on anything new?
Yeah, so I got a new album, which is now finished. It's really long.
Oh shit! How long?
It's about an hour and 17 minutes, which I don't think I've written anything that long before. But it's basically 2 parts, and each part is just a little over 30 minutes. And it's good. It's nice. I'm really, really happy with where my music is at the moment. I am getting a lot more dynamic. Your favorite word, the word that you taught, always with Soundscapes Radio, be more dynamic. Finally. And it's sounding really good. And I went over to a friend's studio the other day and I played it on his Adam speakers, and these Adam speakers are like £7,000 for a pair. They're just ridiculously, they're huge and they're really crystal clear. And so I played it on those and sort of wrote down a few notes, a few things that I might want to change about the mixing or the mastering. And then I'm going to send it to a friend who is a mastering engineer, and he'll sort of like take a listen and tweak it, and sort of make it sound a bit better.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one, but I want to do it properly. I've always just like thrown stuff up on the internet on Bandcamp or Spotify. I want to plan this one a bit more and sort of do a bit of a, pre-release or pre-order or coming soon or something like that.
Yeah, I like it. That's cool, man. Yeah, no, I've been, I guess creatively just checking in on that. Like I've been doing a bit of writing. It's been a mission, man. I'm trying to get photos done, but I've been doing a bit of writing. I found a really nice spot that I go to sometimes in the evenings. It's like a Malaysian Chinese place, really cheap, really good. And I have a seat there that I go in, and it's just really, it's a filthy place. I love it. But I go there and I always get the same thing, the beef rendang and some dumplings. And then I just write for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And I've been really getting into the juice of this novel that I've been working on, into the guts of it. And it just feels really good because I go and do that. And then it's in the middle of town. And then I just sort of like meander home as the twilight, because we're in summertime here. It's like really quite long twilights. And I meander home. And I feel like Dante, just like taking stock of the world around me and just the shenanigans and the kind of collapse of society. And I'm just, I got this really warm, this jacket, I sort of zip myself up and I'm just sort of like drifting through society and observing the sort of the world around me. It's really quite meditative. Just kind of the spectacle of it all.
Yeah, well, that's your walk after dinner, isn't it? That's your short walk.
My after my meal, and it's really cool because I'm deep diving for an hour or so, an hour plus into this like universe that I've been creating and the story, and then it's like I pull myself out of it and I'm back to the reality. But it's cool because it's so real. It's like there's people. They're not just in my imagination; they're out here. They're real, and something about the people of the night, which is quite beautiful because they're almost more real than the people of the day. The kind of busy bees just trying to go to work and stuff. It's like, no, the people of the night on the street, they're more authentic humans, in a way. But yeah, man, that's me checking in, and it's good to catch up with you. I think we've covered a few ideas today. Happy to take any questions from anyone listening to this who's if anyone's got any questions for us to discuss next time.
Please, we've got a Signal group now, haven't we? Which
a mini one, and we've got a new website as well.
New website, which is amazing. Thank you so much for doing that, man.
Thank you.
It's gorgeous.
And if you love the show, please do share and support. We do have a little Bitcoin address on there if you want to throw us some sats. We greatly appreciated. But yeah, otherwise. I'll catch you next time. I think it's been a good catch up, but I'll let you get on with your day.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right, man.
Yeah.
I'll catch you later.
See you soon.
Right.
Take care, buddy.
Yeah.